What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Gameball. And we're going to not do an interview this time. We're going to have a discussion about sports, about the finals, about Donovan Mitchell and Jazz rumors. And today, joining the show, we have Drew Byrne, obviously the co-host of Gameball, joining the show. How you doing, Drew?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be back. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It's been a minute. It's been a little while. It's been long overdue. But hey, we made it. We have something prepared, and we're ready. We're ready.
yeah, I'm excited. First non-interview, but I hope it goes well. Hope it goes well. Keep the people entertained.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what? It's not we're not all about the interviews. We need to give some analysis in there. But like I said, we're gonna talk about the NBA finals and game two concluded. The Celtics got blown out by the Warriors in the second half. Primarily the third quarter was just the disaster quarter for the Celtics. But after watching that game, what was your biggest takeaway?
Honestly, it wasn't because obviously the Warriors' third quarter was crazy. They really brought it back to the throwback dynasty days when I feel like they just blew teams out in the third quarter every single game. But it was the Celtics' just lack of offense and any sort of cohesion on offense that really stuck out to me, especially during that third quarter. Because
Yeah.
like they gave up 35, which is, I mean, that's a lot of points to go from a quarter, but it's not like some crazy amount. It's not like the Warriors went absolutely insane from the field in the third quarter, but Boston only put up 14. And just the entire game, they were sloppy. I mean, the first half, they had an insane amount of turnovers. They had like 7 in the first quarter. And I don't know, their offense, it was sluggish. It was either ISO ball with Jayson Tatum, who played better than in game one, but still wasn't amazing, or it was just like Marcus Smart trying to create for other people. And
Yeah.
that's not the recipe for success for Boston to win games.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. My biggest takeaway was during that first half, right? So the Warriors ended up at the end of the first half leading 52-50. But my biggest thing was this isn't, I guess, similar to game one, but the biggest thing was the Warriors had nothing going on offense, in my opinion, during the first half. And the Celtics played sloppy and allowed the Warriors to stay in that game. Because I mean, in all honesty, when I was watching the game, first off, no way was I thinking the Warriors should be up by 2 points at the end of the first half, let alone even be within, being close to the game. I thought the Celtics should have been up by 10, 15 points, but they kept getting in their own way. They kept turning over the ball, which was not good. In the first half, the Celtics had 11 turnovers and the Warriors scored 18 points off of those turnovers, which is crazy to think about because the Warriors, they weren't doing well offensively. Like they were not doing well. So that was my biggest takeaway. It was just like the Celtics, in my opinion, I mean, again, the third quarter was different. The Warriors really dominated, but the Celtics allowed the Warriors to stay in that game, at least in the first half, and made it very easy. They didn't even have to come back, just easy to stay in the game.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not even like most of the turnovers from the first half were like forced errors. They were like throwing the ball out of bounds. They were like, I remember one Marcus Smart play where he tried to bounce pass to, I want to say it was Tice in the middle, and it must have been like 10 feet off and it just bounced out of bounds. I was like, what is happening? Like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. The offense in the first half from both teams was,
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, you're right about the turnovers, but the Warriors, the thing that everyone always talked about during the Heat series, because obviously big Heat fan, I was following that series along a lot for the Heat Celtics, but everyone and you could see it. The Celtics, they don't have no one like obviously in the NBA they can dribble the ball, but they're not that great in terms of NBA level people that can handle the ball, and they were being like they get the ball stolen so often in game two. There's 15 steals at the end by the Warriors. And it was a lot of it was just a lack of being able to handle the ball by the Celtics, primarily Jaylen Brown. Multiple times, I swear Jaylen Brown drove into the paint or tried to drive around the arc, and they brought pressure upon him, especially Draymond Green, the menace he is, and he just kept getting his hands on the ball, and there you have it. The Celtics were turning it over. You mentioned there were some sloppy turnovers, but a lot of it too was just they can't dribble, and that's an issue. If you can't dribble, you're not looking too good.
no, I agree because their primary ball handler, Marcus Smart, not ideal. But no, Jaylen Brown was getting clamped up the entire game. I remember a couple times, it was almost back to back in that third quarter. Yeah, he came off of a screen and then they just trapped him. at like the top of the key, and he basically just like panicked and either threw the ball away the first time or just got it stripped from his hands. And I was like, there's nobody open for him, and he can't create off the dribble at all. Like he can a little bit for himself, but Jayson Tatum has been way better in the playoffs creating for other people, but they basically just have Jayson Tatum to create any sort of offense for
Yeah.
anybody except for themselves. And even then, Jaylen Brown's like the only person who actually can create offense for himself.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of I think an underrated thing going back to just the Warriors. I want to focus on the Warriors defense. We talked about the dribbling was an issue, but the Heat, who had one of the best defenses in the NBA, they didn't really steal the ball. They didn't force turnovers as well as, at least in my opinion, the Warriors did in game 2 and even did a little bit in game 1. But the Warriors, I always talked about it. They have a very underrated defense. They're really good at switching. They looked like they were a little rushed in the first quarter by the ball movement by the Celtics, which surprised me. Maybe the Celtics got a little tired, but I don't know why they didn't keep that up, because if you watch the Warriors, they were out of control. They kept having to run to the arc, and then the ball just moved to someone else that was open, creating all this space for the Celtics. But after that first quarter, the Warriors kind of homed in on themselves and were like, let's stay true to ourselves. And that was really interesting. And how I almost felt like the Celtics weren't prepared for the Warriors to have that good of a defense, even though they should be. I mean, Andrew Wiggins, as much as people rip on him, kind of a really good defender. He's tall. He's not like I thought he was like a little bit shorter, but he's tall for the position he plays.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like with the Warriors defense, I think it's different than the Heat, but it's about like the same level almost, but they're just way more aggressive, and that leads to them being erratic because I mean, you saw in game 1 and at the start of game 2, like they're giving up a crazy amount of wide open threes because they miss one switch like on the backside, and then like Derek White is just standing there or Al Horford is standing there wide open from 3. But whenever they're actually locked in and they get their switches right, I mean, they've got insane pressure on the ball. And like, yeah, even though Klay Thompson isn't as good as he was, he's still a decent defender. Obviously, Draymond Green, a crazy good defender. Yeah, like you said, Andrew Wiggins is maybe one of the most underrated defenders in the NBA because when he was on Minnesota, he would just kind of like let the game go by, he would score, and then that was kind of it. But ever since he's been on the Warriors, he started locking up. So good for Andrew Wiggins, really fulfilling his potential on defense.
You mentioned Draymond Green, and Draymond, statistically, he's never been that guy. Dude cannot shoot the ball. I mean, he shot a couple from 3, and they were bricks. And when I say bricks, they were bad. Like they were bad misses. But he was active. He was doing. I think he was arguably the most valuable player for the Warriors in game 2, just because he got in the mind of everyone he was going against. He tried against Jayson Tatum, but Tatum's not much of a trash talker. At least it doesn't seem like it. But then Jaylen Brown, obviously they had their little scuffle, which, you could debate for hours. I want to hear your opinion if that should have been a double tech, got Draymond Green out of there or not. But then he also got on the head of Grant Williams, which is funny because like Grant Williams is just, I don't know, man. He's a funny guy to watch. He's a funny guy to watch. But Draymond really brought the intensity and was just, I felt like the heart and soul of the Warriors, at least defensively.
No, I agree. I think he does well. Sometimes he goes over the line, but I think he does most of the time does well playing right on the line of like too aggressive. But I mean, him and Marcus Smart were going at it, chirping back and forth for like the entire first half, and they weren't even near each other on the court except during breaks. So that was good. But I don't know. He's got to be careful though, because he's one flagrant 2 away from getting suspended from a game in this series, or 2 flagrant 1s. So he's got to stay composed, which is something that he often struggles to do. But I don't think the Warriors want a repeat of when he got kicked out of a game against the Cavs, got suspended, and they came back on. So he's got to hone himself in a little bit more than that. But no, yesterday he was amazing.
Yeah, he was. And yeah, I didn't know that about the flagrants. That's kind of interesting to hear about. I mean, just that one play though I talked about when it was him and Brown, and they were talking about whether they should do a double tech on them. And if they gave a double tech, then obviously it would have been Draymond's second technical, which was funny because that would have been he would have had 2 techs in one, like what, 20 minutes or so of playing the game. Like that's funny. That's really like, that's a very Draymond Green thing. But I thought it was interesting that they didn't, like, by the book, probably should have been a double technical. But with everything being on there, it was the question of was it worth the ejection? But do you think, like, personally, it's the finals. I think there should be a little intensity. Maybe by the book, that's a double technical. Obviously, with all the other factors of Draymond possibly being ejected, that could have weighed on their mind. But it's the finals. I expect a little chippiness. I think the rules should be expanded a little bit. So I didn't mind that in general not being called a double technical. But do you think that was the right call? Because I think it was fine. I don't mind the no call of the double tech.
Yeah, I think it was a good no call too, because like sure, if it's in a regular season game in like February, double tech, whatever. But yeah, if we're in the finals and Draymond Green's about to get kicked out of the game, I don't know. Like I'm not on board with like, oh, he's already got one tech, so we can't give him another one. But I just don't think in general, even if neither of them had techs, I don't think that it should have been a double technical because it's fine. Like it's maybe a little far, but like it's the NBA final. Like you can't expect people to not have that level of intensity in the NBA finals. So I thought it was fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't mind the no call right there, like I said, um, with the intensity of the game. I mean, possibly the worst call of the game, which had no implication on what would have happened, but it was just the Jaylen Brown push on Gary Payton the second. I mean, Gary Payton missed both free throws afterwards. Ball doesn't lie, but he didn't even touch the dude. He didn't even touch him. Like, what was happening?
Literally not at all. Well, and then there was the one where Draymond Green like ran over Grant Williams and they gave a foul against Grant Williams. I couldn't believe what I was watching, but
Yeah. Or
it was
the
that
no
was one of
call
the first
with
tech.
Jordan Poole, the no call against Jordan Poole with Derek White, saying he was protect. I mean, look, maybe I'm not an expert on this, but I thought if you protect your face, it's more like
You
this
go
than
small and
like that.
reaching your hand up to try to trip somebody. Yeah, I don't know. It seemed a little weird to me. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before, but it seemed like he was trying to stop him from like I'm not saying he was trying to injure him, but it seemed to me like he was trying to stop him from going on the fast break because he was on the floor and they didn't want a 5-on-4 against them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what it looked like to me, 100%. But you know, I want to talk about some takeaways it had from the game. Like I mentioned, it was a blowout. They lost by 19. The Celtics lost by 19, and it didn't really seem close after that third quarter. But there are some takeaways I've noticed from the game, beneficial for the Celtics and for the Warriors. So I was gonna kind of, I guess, list out my biggest takeaways from the game and then have you say yours. But there was I want to. I don't have a number of them. I have quite a few. First one, not really a big one, but shout out Bielita for the Warriors because dude was kind of good. He made some good defensive plays, and I swear, I wish I went back and I kept stats for it and recorded it. But if you watch that game, the Warriors could not make a basket at the finish. They couldn't finish at the rim, and I didn't know if it was yes, some of it was the Celtics getting good shot blocks, and Robert Williams, Tice had some, but other times it was just the someone on Golden State going up for the layup and they just miss it. It was very weird to me. The Warriors could not convert um, at the rim, especially you could see in the first half. The second half they started making their threes, but it was really interesting to see that happened. I mean, like I mentioned, we said the turnovers kind of kept the Warriors in it. But if you can't finish at the rim consistently, especially on easy layups or putbacks, I don't understand how that happened. And I don't, I'm going to ask you, did you notice that at all? Or is it just me? Because I felt
I
like,
didn't. Yeah.
what?
It kind of felt like they had no interior like nothing going on inside. Like even for a while, they just kind of went away from it. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was either like I want to say it was like midway through the second quarter. They must have gone like 3 or 4 minutes just without driving inside because they had some mindset switch. So I guess they were just gonna hope for the
Yep.
best. But yeah, it's like they were driving inside. I don't know whether it's because they were trying to draw contact and go to the free throw line, so they weren't like focusing on actually making the layup and they were just trying to draw contact. But it was odd for basically the whole first half. They couldn't make anything.
Mhm. And you mentioned that. I mean, it felt like the only times they did get points by going inside was when they got fouled. And that happened, at least what I saw, only 3 or 4 times. Like it wasn't very often they got that contact. And it is weird that if that was their intent to go in and draw contact, it was weird because I swear half the time there weren't really any players around them to as a
Yeah.
defender to push them or to make them draw that. I mean, one time Steph Curry blew by a defender and he just went up for the layup and it hit the side rim and just didn't go in. Like it was just a bad layup. I don't know if they were scared. Obviously Boston has a really good defensive presence. Maybe they're afraid somehow Robert Williams was going to teleport from one side to another or what it was. But it was really interesting to me. And that's something that's like, you can't miss those layups, especially on the road,
Yeah, no, I agree. It was, yeah, I don't know. It was so odd, but I mean, they got it back like in the second half. But yeah, first half, it must be because of the interior pressure. Because when the Celtics centers were there, they were blocking shots and they were like disrupting them. But I agree. It's like they just thought that they were going to be there every time. And then when they weren't, they were surprised.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Bielite had a couple of good little free throws and layups, or not free throws, layups for the Warriors. So he kind of got the ball rolling. He's the man. But another big takeaway I had from that game, and I was really interested to see if the game was close in the fourth quarter, if they would have left him on the court or not. But it was Jordan Poole. So we all know, people rip on Steph Curry for his defense, but honestly, Steph Curry, pretty solid, I think, game 2. He did really well. And another thing I noticed is when it was Jordan Poole and Steph Curry on the court at the same time, the Celtics didn't set the screens to target Steph Curry. They set the pick and rolls and the screens to switch the defender to Jordan, having it be Jordan Poole. And in the first half, that happened a lot. Jordan Poole kept getting blown by. He kept getting having to go and defend Tatum or Brown, and he wasn't doing well at all. And they ended up pulling him out. He played, I want to say 22 minutes that game, but a lot of it was garbage time minutes because he cannot defend. And he was being hunted, and it was successful for the Celtics. And I think a lot of people forgot about that because of all the crazy shots that Poole made, like that half court 3. But that's good. Again, late in the game, there's going to be late in the games where they want Jordan Poole out there because of his scoring, but he can't defend. And that was, if I'm a Warriors fan, I'm nervous. I'm scared because, it's one thing if he's on the court and Steph isn't. It's another if it's like, we want Jordan Poole out there. Like we want to go and target him and go hunt him. And it was just really weird. He could not defend to save his life, it felt like.
No, I agree. He's definitely the weakest defender out of people who they play, like, or at least the weakest perimeter defender out of people who they play consistent minutes. And yeah, as soon as he kept getting switched on, like if Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown was getting the switch on Jordan Poole, you knew they were taking it every single time. Whereas if they got the switch on Steph, they take it a lot. But no, I agree. They're definitely targeting Jordan Poole. I think that's something they're going to have to do more of in game 3 because Jordan Poole is a lot better on offense, at least in game 2 than game 1. So the Warriors are going to keep trying to play him more. But yeah, I think they're going to have to try to get him off the court. So it completely neutralizes his offensive threat, basically.
Yeah. If you're the Warriors, do you leave him on the court just to get the benefits of his offense, or do you take him off and it's like, let's say it's 3 minutes left in the game and we'll just say it's tied because I don't want to get into specifics like, oh, if they're down 5, of course you want him on, for offense, but we'll say it's tied, 3 minutes left in the game. Do you go and you leave Jordan Poole out there because he can get you a bucket, or do you take him out because he's giving up buckets too?
Yeah, I don't know. I think 3 minutes left in the game, I think you got to take him out because it's going to be that like slower half court. Because like if you're running in transition, you're not really getting switched on as much like during the flow of the game. But if it's the last couple of minutes of the game, then teams are going to slow down, take their time on offense, and they're going to get the switch. Jayson Tatum on Jordan Poole, and you're giving up a bucket basically every time, or at least you're giving up a good shot every time. Whereas everybody else who the Warriors could play in crunch time is at least going to have a lot better of a chance of stopping someone like Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown. So I don't think that because his offense, it's not like he's Trae Young on the Hawks where he's just way better at offense than everybody else is. So you have to leave him on the floor. Like he's still not their best offensive threat. So I'd probably say take him out. I imagine that's what Steve Kerr would do.
Yeah. Someone that's, in my opinion, extremely underrated on the Warriors from just offensively, because he just he knows his role. He goes out there, he stays, and he makes threes. But defensively, really good is Otto Porter. Porter is look, he's shooting 37, 40-ish% from three this year, but in the playoffs, he's been really efficient offensively, and he can play defense. He can play defense really well.
No, I agree. I think he's someone who's going to have to play more. Like they're going to have a big combination of guys to try to take Tatum and Brown. I think he's one of them who maybe people didn't think about before the series because obviously you got Wiggins and you've got Draymond Green, but somebody come off the bench and give those guys a break and just play like 10, 15 minutes of solid defense because he's not expending that much energy on offense because he's basically just standing around screening and waiting for a three. But yeah, I think he's someone who he's kind of like Bielitsa, where he comes in for Looney, gives solid minutes, even though it's different because Bielitsa is more offensive and Otto Porter's more for the defensive purposes. But just giving more minutes and letting those guys take more breaks, so that way they're better in the fourth quarter, something that's I think going to be important.
Definitely. And I mean, I agree. I mean, when you have somebody in there that can go in the fourth quarter, like you mentioned, for at least, let's say, the first 3 or 4 minutes of that fourth quarter and can give you, decent offense and can play good defense, like that's all you can ask for. That's great to see. And you want that out of a player, especially someone off the bench. I was surprised that, Kuminga wasn't playing as much this game. I don't think he's played much like in this series at all, or even in the last series that much either. But I mean, he's athletic and he can play deep. He can't shoot, but he can play defense. So I was surprised he wasn't out there a little bit more, especially in the garbage time, because I felt like he was only out there for like the last 5 or 6 minutes. But that was, I mean, not a big concern. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think it was surprising?
I thought it was surprising that he didn't come into the game earlier at the end of the game, but I'm not really shocked that he's not playing that much in this series because, I mean, his defensive assignment is going to be like Brown or Tatum, and I don't think Steve Kerr wants to risk like putting him in there for 5 minutes and him just getting lit up on defense just because of like inexperience, basically. Like Moses Moody's not playing much this series either, where I think they want to go with more experienced guys, and even like Gary Payton is back and he balled yesterday. Like he's another guy who's important, kind of the Otto Porter vibe, just on guards. Like he's not going to play insane offense. Although he played pretty well last night, but like he's got that defense and he's athletic and he can at least run around with people. So
Yeah. Shout out Gary Payton. What a comeback. But my last take, we're going back to the game 2, Celtics, Warriors. My last takeaway that I want to say before I hear any of yours is just Jayson Tatum. I know a lot of people are talking about him and saying that he didn't have, it was one, he's not a guy that you can look at the stats for. You don't look at the stats and say, did he have a good game or a bad game based on the stats? You look at him on the court and say, did he do well or not? And, statistically, he had 28 points. He was cash from three. I know he had a minus 36, so it just kind of proves that, yes, he was getting buckets, but wasn't really helping out the team that much just because of that plus minus. But it was really weird. Just like the 3 points I want to make about it is when, yes, he made his threes, but they were always in spurts, and it wasn't like he was piling them on. Like, it wasn't like he made 2 or 3 in spurts. It felt like he made a 3, maybe got a layup, 3 minutes later went off. They found another open 3 and shot it over Gary Payton and made it. And then a couple minutes went off and he made a 3. And it wasn't very effective. It wasn't like he was like a Steph Curry first quarter where he scored 5 threes in, 1 quarter. It was just very like he made a 3 here and a 3 there, and he made them, which was good. So it looks good on the numbers, but it wasn't like it made an impact on it, which was, you know what I mean? It just didn't make an impact with his threes in a way in the game. And then the other thing that was surprising is Tatum. You mentioned it. He's the primary playmaker for the Celtics, primary ball handler. And he was not, it felt like he made 0 plays when he never made plays to pass it or find the open man. He didn't drive and kick it. He didn't do any of that. It felt like when he didn't have the ball in his hands, he was staying in the corner, not doing anything. And then the other thing that was very concerning to me is if you're making your threes and you're Jayson Tatum, you can get to the rim. You can do that. You can get to with no hand checking. There's no one really in your way. Just get to the rim, draw some contact, and get the bucket. He kept settling for these awful mid-range shots. They were bad. Like he made 2 threes at one point, and then he goes and he tries and back down. I want to say it was like Steph Curry. Like it wasn't like a great defender. And obviously Steph Curry's undersized compared to Tatum. And he tried backing him down on the towards like the left wing, the left elbow, the free throw line. And then time was kind of ticking down. It was like 4 seconds, 3 seconds. He didn't really like use his body to get into it. And then he just settled for this like fadeaway mid range that clearly just it didn't go in. And it just was very like, yeah, he made his threes, but he didn't really do anything else.
No, I agree. I think Tatum just needs to be more like assertive. Like I think he needs to take more shots just in general. Like he's only taken like one or two more than Jaylen Brown last game. Like Jaylen Brown was also playing terrible. So like if you're on it, like you need to put up more shots and just have the ball in your hands more. You're obviously the best player on the team by a mile. Like you're an all NBA first team player. And I don't know. I feel like I agree. He's settling for way too many mid ranges. Like it kind of brings me back to like his like first couple years in the league where he was trying to do that like Carmelo Anthony, Kobe. Like I'm only going to take mid ranges, and then he's grown out of that the past couple years and become more of a playmaker, more somebody who like shoots threes, drives inside, and posts up and takes like a fadeaway mid range on occasion. But I don't know. I think he's settling way too much, especially when he gets a smaller defender on him, and it's either like make a play or like go score. Whereas instead, I feel like he just kind of dribbles. He'll like start dribbling out the clock a little bit, and then have to like just throw something up because he's realized he's got 5 seconds left because he's just been dribbling it like I got this defender for 10 seconds. So I feel like he just needs to be more assertive and just do more for the Celtics if they want to have any chance. Because right now their offense, when it's not with him, is just dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I 100% agree about. But he needs to be assertive. But that's facts. He needs to go and he needs to take charge of this offense and this team. I know Marcus Smart is probably one of the only other guys who can handle the ball. So maybe he wants Smart to have the ball in his hands for a little bit to just kind of take off the pressure on him. But you're right, Tatum, all NBA first team. He needs to go out there and he needs to prove why he was that. He needs to stop he's the man. It almost feels like he wants to be the second guy on the team. Like it felt like he wasn't the star, the best player on the team that, yeah, I'll take charge. Yeah, I'll drive inside, kick it out. Yeah, I'll try and find somebody cutting. It was just more of like, hey, I'm here if you need to if you need someone to make a shot, I'll shoot it for you,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's just not doing enough to really impact the game, like you were saying. And like even on defense, like I don't know, just the intensity that he played with in the first round when he's going against KD. He's got to like do that this series. I don't know whether it's because like he knows that nobody on the Warriors is like as good as him, who like plays on the wing. Like he's got like Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green, who are obviously not like as much of offensive threats as Kevin Durant, but like he has to bring that same level of intensity and just absolutely shut down whoever he's on. Because I feel like that feeds into the offense as well. Like if you're giving up no baskets, then you're getting out in transition and you're just having that more confidence to do what he can do. Which, I mean, he's one of the best scorers in the NBA. He just needs to show it.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if this is right or not, but during the Brooklyn series, was Katie the primary defender on Tatum?
I don't think for most of it because he has to do like all the offense too.
Yeah.
But I mean, Tatum was, in the last, like the last 5 minutes, especially that game one when it was close, Tatum was on KD and KD was defending Tatum.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I think he just has to get back to that sort of mindset.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cause at least when I was watching the game for the Nets against the Celtics, it felt like when Tatum had KD on him, I mean, KD isn't obviously like the best defender in the world, but he's solid. But it felt like Tatum, like you mentioned, kept going after him and kept trying to, go after KD and get a bucket on him or driving on him so they can open up someone else. And, I don't know why, like you said, I don't know why he's not doing that this series. I don't know what's in his head. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned, maybe it's, oh, maybe Wiggins isn't as good as KD. But if you're an offensive player, you got to think, you got to make the other guy, if that's what your mindset is, make him sound better than what he is. I mean, Wiggins is like we mentioned,
all-star starter.
Yeah, all-star starter, well deserving of it. One of the most underrated defenders in the league, probably one of the, best defenders I'll see on the Warriors. Just if he wants to prove himself, say, you know what, I'm going to show that he's not a good defender. I'm going to go take on Wiggins. I'm going to get a bucket here.
Yeah, because right now, Jayson Tatum is, the first game, he was obviously terrible. And even this game, like he didn't shoot that well. He shot well from three, but like every time he went inside, I'm pretty sure he only made two non threes in the entire game. He was like 2 of 10 or something from inside the arc. Like he's got it. He has to do better than that.
Yeah, Tatum just he needs to step it up a little bit and prove that he's the guy, that everyone thinks he is. But I think I mentioned a couple solid good takeaways that I'm sure you agreed on and thought of yourself. But do you have any other takeaways? Anything else that you noticed in that game? Whether it was something like, oh, this player did something really well, or this team did something well. Like, what are your takeaways?
I think the main thing that we haven't already touched on was Klay Thompson and his just horrific shooting right now. And they were talking about it after the game a lot, and I noticed it too, where he's dribbling a lot more, like because he's coming off the screen, but they're doing like the Celtics are actually doing a really good job of not letting him just shoot as soon as he comes off the screen. So he has to start dribbling. Like he was taking like 5, 6 dribbles and then forcing a shot. And I saw a stat from last night. He shot 1 of 13 on contested shots. And like I've never seen Klay Thompson take that many contested shots in a game. And I think he's just forcing it a lot because he knows he's still a good shooter. But I think he needs to take more of a back seat on offense. And like if it's not there, it's not there. Like he'll find himself in the flow of the offense, even if he's not putting up like even if he doesn't put up like 25 points, then if he just puts up like 17 on solid shooting and gets other guys involved, that's going to be way more helpful for the Warriors than when he's just shooting like 15 to 18 times a game, super contested basically on every single shot.
I mean, do you think, if anything, do you think obviously you said it and we all know it, Klay is a great shooter, but do you think that he's doing it because he feels like he needs to prove himself to be this guy that he was before he got injured?
I think that could be, I definitely think that's part of it. Like, I think he feels a lot of the pressure to be like this secondary scorer because he's like supposed to be the guy besides Steph.
Mhm.
And he's obviously not as good as he was pre injury, which, like, I mean, that was always going to happen. But his shooting should still be like around the same. He's just not as explosive driving in, which is his problem. Like, he'll come off the screens as they always do. They'll sell like 2 screens. He'll run around them. But as soon as there's somebody on him, he tries to dribble inside and he just doesn't have that like explosiveness to get away from defenders. And he's never been the most athletic guy, but now you can really see it. And I don't know. I feel like he needs to take a bit of a step back, maybe like play make a little bit more, even though it's not like the best thing that he does. Just kind of draw the defensive attention because I mean, they're not going to leave him open. Like they're going to be hounding him because they know that he'll make him if they're open and then make the extra pass. Whereas I feel like last night he was just shooting every single time he got it.
I mean, and the other thing is too, like statistically, the Celtics have the best defense in the NBA, and through the eye test, you can kind of see why. They know how to switch well. They know how to keep the defender that was on someone still on them, get over screens and switch, whenever they need to do like a kind of a scram defense. So if like, a smaller guy is put on to someone that's bigger, they shoot Al Horford out there to kind of go and guard Draymond Green. The other guy switches back. But it's just, yes, they have a good defense, but I agree. Like Klay Thompson, I mean, my thing is like, yeah, he's a great shooter and he's getting to defend it really well. And maybe it's a hard series for him and mindset wise, because he almost feels like he thinks that he's being shut down because he's not good anymore. But in reality, it's the Celtics have one of the best defenses we've seen in a little while. They are really good and they know what they're doing. And I agree 100%. Klay Thompson needs to, in a way, transform as a player this series. Doesn't mean he's not a great shooter. If he's open, he shoots it 100%, go for it. But I agree. If they're going to put someone good on him, then pass it out, move it around. And if you keep the ball movement going, then eventually he might even get open on that possession for a shot he can make. So I agree. He needs to be, like you said about Tatum, Thompson needs to be more assertive and understand like, hey, you know what? I can't always shoot these shots. Let me go and be a playmaker.
Yeah, because he's just yeah, like you said, if he's wide open, then obviously take it. And even like he can obviously take some contested shots. Like he's a good shooter, but yeah, he's obviously drawing so much defensive attention that they're going to be able to get somebody else open, or at least with a better look or a better matchup, because like it's always going to be somebody who's good at who's good. Like, I don't know, either Marcus Smart or like Jaylen Brown, or somebody's going to be on Klay Thompson at all times, drawing a bunch of the defensive attention. So it needs to be like a lesser version of Steph, where he brings the gravity of the defense out and it opens way more up, like inside the paint for backdoor cuts for other players and stuff.
What do you think like each team needs to kind of do heading into game 3 to be able to go out there and to win it?
I think the Celtics really, they just need their best players to step up and play better. Like, they won the first game out of a lot of like role player 3-point shooting. You know, Al Horford obviously was getting Finals MVP calls after the first game, but like him and Marcus Smart and Derek White all did not play well, basically at all last game. But if Jayson Tatum and especially Jaylen Brown just start playing better, then I think they'd be right. They would have been right in this game, and they'll be right in every single game, because, like, you know, Jayson Tatum is probably not the best player in the series, but one could argue that he's a better player right now than Steph Curry is. I don't think I would say that, but he was better this season at least than Steph Curry was, and Steph has like elevated this finals, which is something that he hasn't necessarily done in the past, kind of like stay the same level, but I think he's really elevated this finals, and Jayson Tatum's taken a massive step back. So I think if just the Celtics' best players play like they are the best players, then it's at least going to be a lot closer than this one was. And the other thing for the Celtics, I think, is just their interior presence was non-existent this game, basically. Like, Robert Williams, he's clearly injured. Like, I don't know if you thought that, but I thought that Robert Williams was definitely injured when he was playing. Like, he was kind of limping around. He was landing weird, and he wasn't doing all that much. Like, Al Horford only had one shot attempt until the fourth quarter. And like, Daniel Tice just isn't that good. So they're going to have to figure out some way, because right now, Kevon Looney and Bielitsa are kind of dominating them inside, and the Celtics cannot allow that to happen if they've got any chance of winning the series.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, again, following the Heat Celtics series a lot, you could tell that like Williams went out there and it felt like he played 18 to 20 minutes a game, but those 18 to 20 minutes a game he was playing were I said this earlier, he was the most valuable player of that series for the Celtics. I mean, because Heat were, they were just undersized. We should have played Dwayne Dedmon more. I kept saying that. I don't know why we didn't. But again, I don't think Williams, just because he got rushed back from his injury, I don't want to say necessarily rushed back. Like, he obviously can play on it, but he's not 100%. He's maybe 80%. But because of that, and having to play the Heat series, coming back a little early, now playing the Warriors series, yes, they have a little bit. The Celtics finally have some more rest between games, but that need for Williams is just it's still going to bother him. You can't get if the Celtics could have gotten Robert Williams for 30 to 40 minutes a game, fully healthy, game changer. But they can't get that, and they will never get that this series, just because he doesn't have enough time to recover from it. So I do agree that it is going to be interesting to see how Williams does. And also, don't disrespect Bielitsa. He's the boy. He's the man. And also, Kevon Looney, I agree though. Kevon Looney shouldn't be doing. What's up?
I said this playoffs, Kevon Looney was insane. Like, he low-key almost won Western Conference Finals MVP. He was crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as much as like it's Kevon, he's kind of grown into his own this playoff run. He's been really good, especially. This is not what I'm saying at all, and it's gonna sound like I'm saying it, but Kevon Looney he's not Dennis Rodman, but he's playing like him, because he's not. And hear me out. There's only one thing I can compare them to, and that's rebounding. And Kevon Looney, he may not be able, he doesn't put up the ball a lot, he doesn't score as much, but he knows his role is to get rebounds, and he gets rebounds. Obviously, he's not Dennis Rodman defensively and in every other aspect, but he knows his role, and he's doing it really, really well. Like, he's doing it. Like, there was that one game, I want to say it was against Memphis maybe, or was it the Mavs, but he got 26 rebounds in one game, which is that's insane regardless of who you're playing.
Numbers.
What's up?
That's Dennis Rodman numbers right there.
That's why I said it. You know me with these statistics. And something I want to say real quick before we talk about the Warriors and what they're supposed to do or what we think they should do for Game 3. Uh, I meant to bring this up during the Klay Thompson thing, and then I kind of froze up because I lost my train of thought. Wasn't a great moment for me. But with Klay Thompson, so they left him in late in the game to try and find a shot again. And obviously, if he found a shot, okay, that'd be cool. He's playing against way like not as good players, right? I mean, when you paint Pritchard, who can't defend on you, you expect to make a shot or two, but he couldn't. He still did not make a shot. I feel like he did. I think he made. I don't even think he made one when he was out there for that garbage time, and this could be slippery slope. But I think there's a lot of things to it. First, if Klay went out there and he made his shots, okay, cool. He found a shot back, and then he'll be okay. Like he'll be all right. The next thing is if he didn't play at all against in the garbage time minutes against anybody, he could say, you know what? I had a bad game. They have a good defense. Their starters knew how to guard me. Okay, that's fine. Go in the gym, shoot some more, and focus on the game plan. But here, what really happened though, and what we saw happen was he went out there, he went against played the garbage time minutes against people who, aren't to his level, and you still couldn't make a shot. So do you think that made? I know Steve Kerr is the coach and he knows what to do. He knows his players well, but I almost feel like that was the worst scenario, was to have him go out there and to have him continue to brick shots. But do you think that affects his confidence in any way? Because I mean, I know he's supposed to have a short-term memory and forget about it, and I'm sure he will. But at the same time, if you think about it and you're out there, oh my gosh, I couldn't even make a shot against Peyton Pritchard. How am I going to score off of Marcus Smart? You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and I think it might impact his confidence a little bit. I don't know. I can just see it coming from a mile away. He's gonna have like a vintage game, like a vintage Klay game next game. We're gonna look like idiots. But no, I agree. Like he hasn't. I don't know, for a while. Like in the playoffs, really, basically the whole time, he's had like 2 or 3, like really, really good games. Game 6 Klay or whatever against Memphis.
Dude. I swear, every time
like one game early against the Mavs, I was like, okay, I guess. But overall in the playoffs, he hasn't played well basically at all. Like he's not the same defender. He's just not the same guy. And I don't know, if the Celtics keep getting solid defense on him, then I don't think he's going to be nearly as good as the Warriors might need him to be.
Dude, I swear every time Klay Thompson does something like good, or like, I know it's like cool, like, oh, if you score like 15, 20 in a quarter, like that's good. But I swear, like every time he does something halfway decent, it's always vintage Klay, because he's just like, is he even that good? Like, I don't get it. I swear every time it's not like, oh, look, Klay Thompson's doing what he's doing. It's more, oh, well, this is new. Like I didn't think I'd see him score this many points in a game. And I don't know why, but it's just like he's open. Like that's what he's supposed to do. Like enough of this vintage Klay. It's either he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, or he's just Klay Thompson. Like I don't know to tell you.
No, I agree. I don't know. I think the coverage on Klay Thompson is a little skewed. It's like people basically are like, oh, he's the same guy that he was before, and they're like trying to convince themselves he's the same guy. But whenever he plays bad, they're like, oh, look, he's just coming off an injury, like a crazy injury. Or whenever he plays good, they're like, see, look, he's the same guy. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. Either he plays bad most of the time and he's not the same guy, or he's the same guy and you have to call him out for his terrible games like last night when he's 4 of 19. Like, come on.
Yeah. Like he's had a whole season to figure this stuff out. And I know he can get better, but it's like, what is he? Like, let's be honest. Is he a top? He's not a top. Is he a top 20 player? No. Is he a top 30 player? Like,
is he a top what?
30, 40? Like where is it? I don't know. I have to go through it, but he's not what he was.
Player.
What?
The top 50 player.
Yeah, he's top 50. But like
between 30 and 50.
Yeah, somewhere in that range, I mean, DeAndre Ayton's a top 50 player, like I don't know what to say about Klay Thompson, and he can get better. I know that, and it's Klay, but he's not that great. Like, is he number 2? Is he really, like, on the Warriors, he's number 2, but I remember before,
I don't think anymore thinks that Klay Thompson is better than Draymond Green, though. Like,
I mean, I think,
maybe some people might, but he's not. Like, he's
well,
not Draymond Green. But he
I
is the
guess,
number. I guess he's the number 2 scoring option. But like,
well, what I was gonna say was that the Warriors, when you look at them, no one on these like I remember before the injury when it was vintage Klay. Like I used to say, if he was the number 2 and you threw him on LeBron's team, he'd be spectacular because that's the type of player LeBron needs, a spot up shooter. But people used to say, "Oh, put Draymond on the Trailblazers." They kept mocking him or like mock trading him there for some reason, like send him over to Portland. He'll be a great 2 facilitator. But in my mind, I look at this team and this Warriors team, and obviously Steph Curry is a whole superstar, another level. Excluding him, though, if you look at the team, they make it work because of the Warriors with Steve Kerr and just the players they have. And, no one really talks about the culture they have there. It works. But if you were to take a player off the Warriors and like realistically, you might see Draymond Green's the 2 or Klay's the 2 or whatever, and you put him on another team to have him be that 2, they're not going to elevate that team. Like, I don't know how much they'll elevate them that much anymore. Like it works for Golden State, but does it work when he goes to someone else? Like, I just think the Warriors have such a good mesh and the chemistry together that they play better than what they are.
no, I agree. I think that definitely is true with Draymond Green. It has been true his entire career. I think Klay before the injuries, I think he would be not as good, but basically as good as everything else, just because I think his skills are a lot more transferable. Like you could fit Klay, you could fit vintage Klay into any offense. But yeah, no, now I think Klay gets a big pass that I'm not sure he would get if he wasn't on the Warriors, just because he's like best friends with Steph Curry and like he's been on the team for so long and he has been really, really good. So I feel like there's not as much pressure on him because he's on the Warriors and like the culture there. But like if let's say he got traded this offseason, I think there'd be a ton more pressure on him, basically.
Yeah, I get more pressure, and I just don't think it'd be as good. I mean, other than joining up with LeBron, because LeBron also, as much as people rip on him, he elevates people, like make them way better than what they are. But if he were to go to another team, I just don't see. There's not many teams I can see players on the Warriors going to and kind of being the same. I mean, maybe Andrew Wiggins would translate just because Andrew Wiggins has a very generic play style. It's great defense and getting to the basket, and he's just athletic. So I kind of translate. But everyone else, I don't know. It's just very interesting.
I think they have very specific skill sets that fit into the Warriors system, which obviously like Draymond Green and Klay Thompson were both drafted there. Like they've worked into this whole system. So maybe if like they were drafted somewhere else, they would have been a different type of player. But yeah, I don't think you can transfer someone right now and they'd be as good basically anywhere else.
Who's better, Harrison Barnes or Andrew Wiggins?
I was just thinking about Harrison Barnes last night when I was thinking about
Harrison Barnes. Dude.
No, you know what? Andrew Wiggins is better than Harrison Barnes.
I agree. I agree.
I think that they're pretty similar in their time on the Warriors, but outside of the Warriors, like as much as people want to rip on Andrew Wiggins on the Timberwolves, and like I get that he wasn't insane and he wasn't worth his like max contract, but Andrew Wiggins was good on the Timberwolves. Like he was averaging more than 20 points a game for like 4 straight years before he came to the Warriors.
That's what I'm saying. Wiggins is pretty good, and I mean, I'm just saying he can easily finish his career with 20,000 points easily.
Andrew Wiggins, low key, could be a Hall of Fame.
I don't know.
Andrew Wiggins, low key Hall of Famer. Get ready, it'll happen. If he wins this title and puts up 20,000 points, he might be in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, I could see it. And other thing is like, I mean,
the basketball.
Also, when you look at the NBA Hall of Fame, I feel like anyone can really. It's not a knock, but like they let some guys in there. It's just not prestigious, in my opinion.
No, well, I mean, there's the Al Horford Hall of Fame debate going on right now.
I don't know.
If Horford wins this title, then he's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
That's what I'm saying. That's the thing. That's the only thing I have to say about the NBA Hall of Fame. It almost feels like if you go and you have a solid career with a couple good seasons and you get a championship, you're basically locked in. Like, I mean, Horford's gone to numerous playoffs, but like, is he a Hall of Famer? I don't I don't
In
know.
any other sport, he's never a Hall of Famer. In
Yeah.
the NBA, I don't know. I mean, we've got Nick Wright and his comparison to Reggie Miller. I don't know if you've seen it, but he hates Reggie Miller. And he's basically like Al Horford has all better stats than Reggie Miller. Plus, if he wins a championship, he's got to be in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, hey, there we go. What a great player to put in the Hall of Fame, and Big Al. Did he jinx the Celtics playoff chances by flexing? I don't know. I'm not sure, but we will find out. Um, but with we're gonna little sidetrack, but I want to talk about Game 3 a little bit more. And you said the Celtics have to do what again? Just a little synopsis. What do you think they have to do to win the game?
Basically, they just need Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown to play up to their level that they're playing throughout the season and even in the playoffs. And they just need more of an interior presence to try to combat Looney and Bielitsa, which is never a sentence that I thought I would say before the playoffs started. But
Well, I'm not surprised it's being said. I've always been a big Bielitsa guy. Don't know why. I just thought it was like funny. But Looney's 7 up, but Bielitsa's always been a boy because he can shoot. And I love big men that can shoot. That's like the icing on the cake for me. But before we talk about the Warriors, there's one thing I guess it would kind of focus for both of them, but it's not really a huge takeaway for the Warriors. It's more of, can the Celtics keep it up? But call me like I know the Celtics could shoot. I know they could shoot the three ball well. I mean, they shot 36% as a team from three during the regular season. But I don't think they can keep up this 3-point shooting against the Warriors. I mean, they're matching the Warriors bucket for bucket from three. I mean, the Celtics went, I want to say, 15 for 37 or somewhere around there. This or in Game 2, and then the Warriors went 15 for like 42. Both pretty solid percentage wise. And then the game before, I don't know the exact number, but the Celtics they were toe to toe with 3-point shooting and efficiency wise, percentage wise with the Warriors. And I know they have Horford who can stretch and he can shoot. I know Tatum can obviously shoot. I know when Jaylen Brown is on, he can make a three. Same with Marcus Smart. But I think it's a big thing that people aren't talking about is the 3-point shooting by the Celtics. And I don't think they can keep it up. I really don't. And if they can't keep that up, can they keep up with the Warriors 3-point shooting? Because everyone in the Warriors is capable of making a three.
no, I agree. Like, obviously, it was insane in Game 1, especially in the fourth quarter. But like, over half of those were wide open threes. So, like, if the Warriors just played halfway decent defense on those, they're not shooting that well. And yeah, like, they have decent shooters, but like Marcus Smart was like 4 of 7 in Game 1 from three, and Derek White has been on fire apparently recently from three, and he was awful for the whole season and first part of the playoffs. And yeah, I don't think they obviously don't have the same shooters that the Warriors do. Like, even like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are good 3-point shooters, but like basically nobody else on their team is that good. Even Al Horford is like a crazy good
I
stretch big.
mean,
No deal.
Horford can make a three. He shot 40% or something around there. Like he can. I agree. I think what you're about to say is he can't make like a contested three, but when he's open, I think he can knock them down.
No, I
He's more
agree.
than
I
capable.
just don't think he shoots enough. Like, he's not like a high volume 3-point shooter, except for in Game 1 of this series. But like most of the time, he's shooting like he shot like 40%, but he's shooting like 2 threes a game most of the time. So I don't think he's putting up enough volume to be as useful as he could.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Derek White had a kid and just decided to go on a tear. I'm just saying, if that kid was due 2 weeks from now, they wouldn't be in the finals because the
That's
Heat
true.
would be in the finals. Like Derek White scored like 20, like numerous times on the Heat, and I was just like, how is this happening? Because Derek White is not a shooter, but now he is. It's like didn't this happen with Fred VanVleet during the Raptors
The
run? I
exact same
swear he had a
thing
kid.
for Van Vliet. And Fred Van Vliet's been good ever since. So maybe this is the turnaround of Derek White's career.
Dude, Brad Stevens is thankful that Derek White had a kid, or else that trade would look a little lopsided. Because I love Romeo Langford, but then again, he hasn't really panned out. But I swear, no one like the Celtics. They always have these guys that get drafted between picks like 10 and 15, and then they never really play. But they're like Neesmith. I like Neesmith a lot, and he can defend. Like he blocked Victor Oladipo a couple of times and got some nasty blocks again up against him. But he doesn't play like that. He didn't play that much this season, and he's obviously not playing that much in the playoffs. But they do this, and then they end up moving on.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they just don't like focus on they just don't play them enough minutes. And it's not like their bench is stacked with like insane players. Like they're paying Peyton Pritchard like 20 minutes a game in the final. Like, what are we doing? Like Aaron Nesmith is better than Peyton Pritchard.
That's what I'm saying. Nesmith can shoot decent. I mean, I know Pritchard's supposed to be like the shooter amongst the backup guards. Obviously, Derek White said like, "No, I'm the shooter." But Nesmith, I think, is a better overall player than
I think
Peyton Pritchard. Like, I don't know. But yeah, that's the thing I want to focus on though. Like I said, I want to see how efficient and how well the Celtics can shoot the three ball in game 3. I'm sure that I'm assuming that will be a point of emphasis for the Warriors to kind of focus on and stop and make the Celtics say, you know what, we're gonna have to try and beat you by making more mid ranges than you making threes. And that's, not, I swear no one knows what a mid range is anymore. They don't shoot it except if you're DeMar DeRozan. But I'm very interested to see how that works out. And then for I think that's also, honestly, I think it's a big takeaway for both teams, but I guess more so for the Celtics, it's just more like, can they keep up their shooting? And like you mentioned, Tatum and Brown, can they be the stars that they're supposed to be? And I guess my biggest focus point is kind of reiterating what you said, and it's with Jaylen Brown. And it's always been the question all season. And it's like, do they have to break him up? Is Jaylen Brown the 2? But my thing is, I think Jaylen Brown is a really good player. I think he's athletic. I think he can defend. Yeah, he can't really dribble. But my biggest thing is, if can Jaylen Brown, can he shoot the ball? Can he make the baskets? Can he get them when they need him? He has those games where it's like every 4 games, it feels like he goes and he does really well. It's like Chris Middleton-esque. Like he can defend and he can have a big game here and there. But Jayson Tatum's nowhere near Giannis, so it doesn't really work out. And they don't have a Drew Holiday. Marcus Smart's like a poor man's version of Drew Holiday. I mean, I feel like we're talking about the Bucks now with the Celtics, but and my biggest thing is this: can Jaylen Brown, can he be the 2 and make baskets even if he's having a bad shooting night? Can he make them play in the game when it matters?
Yeah, no, I agree. As I said earlier, Jaylen Brown, because he played well, like in game 1 in like the fourth quarter when Jayson Tatum was playing awful, 3-17 from the field. Jaylen Brown did step up and played well, and he kind of took command of that offense when Jayson Tatum was struggling. But he just needs to do more of that during the rest of the series.
Yeah, definitely. And then with the Warriors, the biggest thing for me and just what they should do for game 3. I mean, I don't think there's much to it. I think they did well. I mean, I know people criticize Draymond Green for saying we won for 42 of the 48 minutes and we were playing better than the Celtics, but I don't think that's a false statement. I mean, Celtics just went on some crazy run to end the game, and I don't know what happened to the Warriors, but I think it's fine. I mean, I don't have much to say about the Warriors other than Klay Thompson doesn't need to be the guy he was, but he just needs to be more of a playmaker. And if he's open, he just can't force things. If he's open, shoot it. If he's not, pass it. I think Steph is great. I think Draymond, he just needs to keep up what he's doing and playing tough, being a menace to the entire Celtics team, and continue to yell at Ime Udoka as he runs by him. But I mean, other than that, I think the only thing from a game plan standpoint that I would focus on if I was the Warriors, and probably won't even be an issue because I don't think they'll be putting Jordan Poole out there with Steph Curry that much. But it is, if it's like, the only thing I would say is if Steph Curry is out there with Jordan Poole on defense, what's their game plan to have Jordan Poole not be targeted? That's the only thing. And how are they going to help? But it's going to be help defense. Will Green step up? Will Looney help step up so no one can drive in on him? Will someone go and switch on him? That's my only thing. That's the only thing I really have to say about the Warriors, because honestly, I think the Warriors have really dominated these past 2 games. It should be 2-0, but they kind of got in their own way.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the 2 main things for the Warriors is basically just keeping up with these 2 things. It's like the turnovers, because obviously they forced a bunch of turnovers last game. They had 15 steals, and the Celtics only had 5 steals. So they need to, because that used to be and still is kind of in this playoffs been like the Warriors' downfall is they get sloppy and they turn the ball over. Like they've lost the turnover battle in most of their games these playoffs, even against teams that they're way better than, because they just get sloppy. So I feel like if they can keep that up and just their interior defense, because the Celtics have shot better from three than from two in both of the games so far in this series. And like yesterday, they only shot 37% overall from the field. So like if they can keep up that interior defense that has been going really well, because it's not like the Celtics just been blowing open shots. Like basically every single time the Celtics drive inside, it's been a contested shot. So yeah, just keeping up the same things that they're doing on defense and keeping control of the ball, and I think they should be fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The turnover thing is an interesting thing to see. I mean, obviously both teams are capable of getting sloppy with it, but I was thinking more about it when you were talking, and with the turnovers, it's another thing I want to just kind of mention again from game two is, yeah, the Celtics kept the Warriors in by their bad turnovers, but and you mentioned the one where Marcus Smart threw it out of bounds, not a great, or maybe it was Grant Williams, one of those two, threw it out of bounds. And obviously they turn over the ball. But the thing is, he mentioned the steals. The steals in particular, because if you throw the ball out of bounds, yes, it stinks, and you lose an offensive possession, but you get to get set on defense. The big thing is transitioning. And if you get a steal, if you're the Warriors, you can get a steal. I mean, most of the time, if you get a steal, it's by a guard, someone quicker. And if you get Steph Curry in transition with someone else running the outside lane, like even Gary Payton, who's very athletic, that's a bucket easily right there. If Gary Payton gets a steal, Steph Curry can then easily hide in the at the wing or in the corner, and that's an easy 3 points for them. So I do agree. It's the Celtics. It goes both ways. If the Celtics can limit their turnovers, then it's going to be harder for the Warriors to score because the Celtics get to get set on defense. If the Warriors steal the ball, they get to score easily because they're in transitioning. They're in transition.
Yeah, I agree. The transition points, especially in the first half, like we mentioned earlier, to keep them in the game, were crazy. And yeah, I definitely think just not turning the ball over themselves as well is going to be the key, because I feel like they always force a lot of steals, but they also normally give up a lot. But the past couple of games, they really haven't.
Well, game three at TD Garden. Who do you have winning the game? Obviously, the fans will be showing out and they will be loud. So who do you have winning between the Warriors and the Celtics in game three?
I'm taking the Warriors in game three. The Celtics, I know they stole home court, so like really they should be going back happy or whatever. But they've been awful at defending home court the entire playoffs. Like they stole home court from Miami, gave it back straight away. They stole home court from Milwaukee, gave it back straight away. Like I think they've lost 3 home games out of like 6 in those 2 series. So I don't know. Like I feel like the Warriors are playing better right now. I feel like Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum need to step up, but really, I feel like they've only stepped up, and they have stepped up, but only when their backs are against the wall. And I feel like even though they just got blown out, they're still going in with a pretty like positive outlook on the series. Tied 1-1 going back home. But I feel like the Warriors just play better than them. I don't think Klay Thompson plays as bad as he did this game, even if he doesn't play great. And I feel like Steph Curry has been by far the best player in the series so far, and I think he keeps that up in game 3.
Yeah, I agree. I have the Warriors winning just because you mentioned yourself. I mean, I think the Warriors, yeah, the series was split, but it was very dominated by the Warriors. And you mentioned the home court, so it's not being able to defend it. I mean, honestly, if the Heat had a home court crowd that learned how to cheer, I think the Heat would have again won. I mean, the crowd was dismal. Like no one
That
was.
is the thing about the Celtics. Like even though their team might not play well, I think they've had the best crowd in the playoffs so far.
But I think they're playing against a team that has the best crowd that they've gone against with the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors fan base is obviously really loud, and I'm gonna go with the Warriors because I think Steph Curry's playing out of his mind, and he can keep that up. It's Steph Curry. I think that they have a great defense under Ron Adams, or one of their assistants, who's apparently a defensive guru for the team. And I think I don't know. I just think that the Celtics, they need a lot of pieces to kind of fall into place for them to win, where the Warriors kind of already have the formula set in place and they have to make maybe 1 or 2 adjustments. I mean, one more thing about the Celtics, they had three of their stars only combined for 6 points, in game 2, which that can't happen. no matter what. That just can't happen. I mean, that's awful. Even if Robert Williams is hurt playing 80%, he should still be able to get a couple buckets inside. That just can't happen. So I'm just solely basing it off of the Celtics are young. They have a young coach. They need to make adjustments, but can they? I mean, I don't know. And I think the Warriors, they have it all going, and they know how to play and they know how to win. So I'm going Golden State. And before I let you go, we got one more topic to kind of focus on away from the finals, and that's the Jazz. Quinn Snyder stepped down, even though he got offered a bigger contract extension to stay. He's no longer the coach of the Jazz. There's been a lot of people rumored to take over. I know one of the names was Terry Stotts from Portland. I don't know if that's going to happen. And then a lot of the other ones was assistants. One of them was an assistant on the Jazz now. One of them was an assistant on the Jazz who went to, I want to say, like Milwaukee, and now he could come back. And then one at Toronto. Apparently they interviewed him when they were interviewing Quinn Snyder for the job and gave Quinn Snyder, but obviously he must have interviewed well if he was being interviewed, and now it's a candidate again. But we're not really going to focus on the coaching and who's going to be the guy, who's going to be the head coach. But just as a whole, you look at this organization, you look where it's at. A lot of it it's always seemed, ever since COVID happened, it seemed kind of there was tension there between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, no matter what. And was it because of COVID? Maybe. Was it just an excuse to say it was COVID, but maybe it was just always there? I don't know. And no one really knows. The Jazz have always been kind of stuck in the same place. First round, second round, they never made it past the second round of the Western Conference Finals, or Western Conference, I should say. And I feel like they've kind of maxed out their team. I don't think they can do much more to add another superstar, add another big piece. And now it's almost a him or I with Rudy Gobert against Donovan Mitchell. So I'll say mine real quick. I will just say, I think if it was a him or I piece, I think Rudy Gobert. So when they gets traded, just because it's hard to find a really good guard who's still, he's 20, 25, 26, playing really well, who can defend pretty well and can shoot and has the kind of the star potential of Donovan Mitchell. Even though I think Donovan Mitchell maybe, I don't want to say has, so I'm not going to say it, but there's a possibility that he's kind of maxed out as a player. Like, he is what he is. He'll get better when he's in his prime, 26, 27, 28, because he'll just be athletically well. But in terms of, what he is, maybe potentially maxed out. But I still think what Donovan Mitchell is now compared to what Rudy Gobert is now, yes, Rudy can defend really well, but he's kind of a I forgot the word I'm trying to say, but he's a liability when it comes to switching and trying to guard a perimeter player. So I think they go Donovan Mitchell over Rudy Gobert if that happens. But I guess my first question, I'll have two questions for you. First one is, do you think the Jazz stick with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and try and fix it? Or do you think they split them up or trade both? And if they trade one or the other, who do you think is the one that they end up trading?
I think they are. I think they're going to trade Rudy Gobert. Like, I personally would rather trade Donovan Mitchell.
Really?
Yeah, not because I don't think Donovan Mitchell is better than Rudy Gobert, but I think Donovan Mitchell's play style is one where he needs to be the best player on the team. And I don't think Donovan Mitchell is ever going to be the best player on a championship team. Like, he's good, but he's not on the same level as a lot of other guards in the NBA. And I think Rudy Gobert had the unfortunate task of having to be the only person on a team who can defend. So it made him look a lot worse than he actually was, like, in the playoffs, because they can switch on him. And he can't defend incredibly well in the perimeter, obviously. He's like 7'2" and pretty slow on his feet, but he's not that bad, like, especially if it's just like switch on a shooter or something. But he has to like lay off of them because there's no other Jazz defenders. Besides, like, Royce O'Neal is all right, but like no other Jazz defenders have any sort of like interior presence. So if any of them get cooked on the outside, then he has to go in and try to help on the inside, and then his guy's wide open. So I feel like Rudy Gobert is on a team with better defenders, like, I don't know, the Mavericks or something. Then that's I don't know. I think he'll seem a lot better than he is right now. But I think they're going to trade Rudy Gobert because it's easier to try to find a replacement for him. And I don't know. I think optimal trade place for him is the Trailblazers.
Portland, really?
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people have thought about this one, but I feel like, because I think everybody's talking about Dallas, and like, I get it. I think that's a better place for Rudy Gobert to go to. But I don't know who exactly Dallas is trading to get Rudy Gobert in this trade. But I think Portland, like, they have the seventh pick. They could just trade the seventh pick for Rudy Gobert, or they could give back Nurkic and they give back like a couple young players because they've had pretty high picks recently, and like a couple picks. And I think that's a way better package for Utah than anything Dallas could give. And also, like, it's a I don't know. I think that he would do really well on Portland, and they could team up with Damian Lillard. So Portland seems like they're still trying to really go for it, even though, I mean, I don't think they're going to win anything with just Damian Lillard and Rudy Gobert, but they'll be better than they were this year. So
Well, thinking about that, I think if they got Rudy Gobert and you paired him up, so they would have Dame. They would not trade Anthony Simons or Simons, whatever his name. They would not trade Anthony because they'd be pretty good on scoring from the guard position. Now the concern, now that you mentioned it before with the Jazz. So, well, first I'll say if they got Rudy Gobert and that was kind of their big three, and they got some solid pieces in there, because the Trailblazers are a team that can get a decent player here, like a solid player. But I think they just honestly just be where the Jazz left off. I think they'd be a 4 or 5 seed, maybe get past the first round. If not, push it to 6 or 7 games. I mean, it's almost the same team, except you'd have Dame, who's better than Donovan Mitchell, at least from an offensive standpoint. So that would be interesting. Would you, if you're Portland, yes, Rudy Gobert is going to be 30 entering next season, which is still pretty young. I mean, that's not terrible.
yeah.
But you know what he is. You know he's a defensive stopper. But would you rather have him, who's going to be, again, on same contract as the guy I'm about to mention? You'll give away the same package, probably pick 7 and someone else. But would you rather have Rudy Gobert on that team and seeing where it is, kind of being the win now mode? Or would you say, you know what, this guy can still be pretty efficient if he still has room to grow. He might become better than what he is. Better player than Rudy Gobert offensively, no doubt. And get DeAndre Ayton.
I mean, I'd probably rather go for DeAndre Ayton just because like the long term upside. But like, I mean, Rudy Gobert is better than DeAndre Ayton. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just the biggest Rudy Gobert fan of all time, but I love myself some Rudy Gobert. But no, I think that long term, you've obviously rather have DeAndre Ayton, but I think you might have to give up more to get him. And at
I
least
don't know. I don't
I don't
know
know.
about that
I think
because
there's
there's a
more.
lot of people do not like him in Phoenix. I mean, at
No,
least that whole.
I don't think that's because like people don't like him in Phoenix. I think there's just a lot more other teams who are going to want DeAndre Ayton because no teams who are like rebuilding and are like currently. I mean, as a Thunder fan, like I could see us trying to get DeAndre Ayton, whereas there's no chance that we would ever trade for Rudy Gobert. So I feel like teams with young cores are more likely to go for DeAndre Ayton, whereas there's only a limited amount of teams to go for Rudy Gobert, so the market's smaller for him.
I agree with that. I do think the market size would play a factor, like you mentioned, and maybe I guess the biggest thing, because it's hard to think about it. If I'm Portland and you want to, it's almost like there's like 3 different realities with it. It's like if you get Rudy Gobert, I think first they'll probably get Rudy Gobert for a little bit cheaper of a price than DeAndre Ayton just because of the suitors, but who knows? I mean, there is some, they say issues. It's like DeAndre Ayton loves playing video games way more than he does watching film, which is, it is an issue because I mean, how he's going to be able to grow IQ wise, but that's not bad. Like, I mean, he's not doing something dumb. I mean, he's playing video games. He's young. He's like 23, 24. Like what, that's just normal. You know what I mean? That's what somebody would do. But the thing about it is with Rudy Gobert and DeAndre Ayton, if you get Rudy, I think it puts you in the, I don't want to say it's win now mode, but they're not going to win anything. But I'll put you in that win now mode with Dame and with Rudy. And but you know what Rudy is, great defensive player, can get rebounds, can score pretty well inside, can't really shoot the ball. Okay, and you have that, and you have Anthony Simons and Rudy Gobert. Then you look at DeAndre Ayton, and it's like we get DeAndre Ayton. Hey, Dame, here's DeAndre Ayton. He may not be as good as Rudy Gobert this season, but give him a year. Maybe he'll grow into him, or maybe he'll grow into being just a great center this season, even, and he's young and he can be good. And it's like he might not be as good as Rudy, but they kind of be in this. They'd be a couple wins lesser, but they'd still be pretty much in the same areas what they had with Rudy. But they probably wouldn't be in as good as a win now mode. But the only thing about DeAndre, and I know I mentioned it before, is the developmental side of things. Okay, we know what Rudy Gobert is. We don't really know the whole potential of DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton has the potential to be a top 5 center in this league, and he's 6 years younger. So if you're the Trailblazers front office, it's almost you ask yourself, do we give Rudy Gobert, who can help Dame? Do we get DeAndre Ayton, who will still help Dame, but not as much as Rudy Gobert? But he allows for the more development and allows us to still have somebody after Dame's kind of Dame over. You know what I mean?
If there's any chance that like they'd seriously look into trading Dame, then they should definitely go for DeAndre Ayton. But if they're like hard fast on no, like we're never gonna get rid of Dame, like he's our guy and we're just gonna keep trying to build to win, then I think there is an argument to go for Rudy Gobert. But yeah, I think if there's any chance they get rid of him and are looking for life past Dame, then DeAndre Ayton has to be the move, because like him and our boy Anthony and any trade package that you could get for Dame, like you've got a solid core there.
Yeah. You got Josh Hart. Come on.
Yeah, Josh Hart.
Nazir Little. I thought Nazir Little was gonna be so good, and he's Nazir Little. I mean, he's better. He's doing decent. It's not what people thought he was gonna. At least yet. So real quick though. So you said with the Jazz, you said yes, they're gonna break up the team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you said that. So do you think you said if you were the Jazz, you would trade Donovan Mitchell, but you think they'll trade Rudy Gobert?
Yeah, I think Rudy Gobert is easier to trade, and I don't think that. I think if you trade Donovan Mitchell, then you're going into more of a rebuild. And I don't know. I think they're like one of those teams, like a Portland, like a I don't know Indiana before this year, where it's like where they're like content with just being like good because they don't have that big market. So like they don't want to trade away like their star guy unless they absolutely have to. If that makes sense.
I agree. I mean, the one thing I will have to say though, if I'm Utah and I know that you're gonna try your best, because look, I think you said it. I said it. I'm gonna say it again. I think a lot of people would say the same thing. If you look at Utah, yes, you would just as a team, they'd rather keep Donovan Mitchell than Rudy Gobert, just because Donovan Mitchell has proved is a better player than Rudy now, because he's someone you can build a championship around. I don't know, but he is better than Rudy Gobert. So yes, you would want to keep Donovan Mitchell around. But here's my only thing. If I'm Utah and you're going to pull out every stop to keep Donovan Mitchell around because people love him. People love him in Utah, Salt Lake. They like him. They want him. He's a star. He was a 13th pick. Wasn't supposed to be this big time, and now he is. But if I'm Utah, I'm looking at D-Mitch. And I know you saw what Philly did and was able to hold on to Ben Simmons for a while, and they still got the guy they basically wanted with Harden. But if you're Utah and you're looking at Donovan Mitchell, and maybe he has a mutual respect, but I mean, if I'm a player and I'm going to get traded, I want the team that I'm going to keep as many good players around as they can. But if I'm Donovan Mitchell, if you're like Utah, you're thinking, well, we could trade Donovan Mitchell and get more for him right now. And if he doesn't say like, I want out, but as soon as Donovan Mitchell says, I want out, the value of him skyrockets very far down. Because if you basically say, why wouldn't you trade him to me? He doesn't want to be there. You know what I mean? He doesn't want to be on that team. This is a destination he wants to go to. Send him here. And I know they can say, well, another package, whatever. But I mean, if I'm Utah, I'm concerned because I think that the only player the only person in that organization that's not a player that's like in the front office that I think has any pull with him besides Quinn Snyder would be Dwayne Wade, just because they have a mutual respect for one another. I know Dwayne he's only like 1% owner, which isn't much, but they have that like Donovan Mitchell love, like they have that really good relationship with one another. You can tell and you can see it. But even I don't think Dwayne Wade, who was an owner of 1% of the team, just as he's not like a shame on him being an owner. If he had owned 10% or whatever, he's not the primary owner of the team, which is not a knock on him, but not the primary owner, not the coach, not the general manager. if I'm Donovan Mitchell, as much as I love Dwayne Wade, but if he's the only guy in the front office that I can say, you know what, I can trust, that's not going to do it for me. And I'd want out. You know what I
Dan-
mean?
Yeah, Danny Ainge nowadays.
Yeah, that's true. I
I
know.
think
But
the biggest
do you think
problem for Utah isn't if Donovan Mitchell says that he wants out, because then like you still got a solid amount of suitors. But if he says like I want out and I want to go to New York, like sort of like what Anthony Davis did with LA, he's like, all right, I want to get traded and I only want to go here, then you're struggling. Like you might end up getting like a Kawhi Leonard, DeMar DeRozan trade where like the Spurs could have got more, I feel like, for Kawhi Leonard,
100%?
but like he was just, I mean, that was a whole different situation. But like you're basically not getting the full value because everybody's worried that, oh, he's just going to leave as soon as he can, anyways. So why are we going to bother trading for him? And like, I know their contract situations are quite the same, but it's kind of that deal where like, oh, he doesn't want to come here. Why would we give up all of our stuff for some guy who doesn't even want to come here?
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing too that I want to say real quick about Donovan Mitchell, and this isn't about this kind of pivoting away, but it's the suitors, what people are saying he might go to. The three primary ones are Dallas, New York, and the Heat. And so with New York, he would be the guy there. He just have the city. That'd be cool, whatever. He goes to Dallas. You mentioned it yourself. The way Donovan Mitchell plays, he needs the ball in his hands. He's not going to get the ball in his hands with Luka because it's Luka's team. He's the guy. He's top 5 player in the league. Easily able to say that. So I don't know. I mean, again, it comes down to Donovan Mitchell. Will he be able to understand his role? I don't know. I mean, not even his role, but his play style. He needs the ball. He has to create a shot, which is good, but you can't have that the whole time. So I'm a little weary of that. And then you look at Miami and they say he should go to the Heat. As a Heat fan, I like Donovan Mitchell, but I know the culture and we can transform players. So that's the thing, is the Heat culture. I know they say another thing to think about is like Jimmy Butler's getting up there in his age. He's about 33, 34 for next season. And yeah, maybe you don't want the ball in his hands as much to kind of allow him to not to, have to age so quickly with it. But I don't think Donovan Mitchell's the right fit for the Heat. I don't know if I'd want him. I do think we need another star on the team. I just don't know if Donovan Mitchell would really fit with us. But that's one thing I want you to talk about with the fit of how he would fit on, like, would you work in Dallas? Would he work in Miami? But the other thing I have to say is the packages that people are putting and creating for Donovan Mitchell and that I've seen and just thinking about it and with the teams that want him, what they could offer him. If I'm Utah, they're terrible offers. Like, I like Tyler Hero. I think he's great. I think he can shoot. He's 22. He's young. He's really good. He would probably give up Tyler Hero. They give up Duncan Robinson for the Cat, maybe a Max Strus and a first. I don't know. But that's an awful trade package for this star guard who's still really young and under contract for 3 or 4 years. That's not a good package. Like, I like Tyler Hero, but he's not like he's honestly, I think he could. He's not. I don't know if he could be even a third star on a championship team. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know if I do that if I was Utah. You look at Dallas. You sit up with Rudy. What are they offering? Like maybe
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson in a signing trade. I don't want Jalen Brunson as a primary piece in a signing trade for Donovan Mitchell. And then look at New York, and people are saying RJ Barrett. First of all, RJ Barrett's done really well. He's grown. He's been a really good player. Again, not the primary piece I want in a trade with Donovan Mitchell, RJ Barrett. And the other thing is they're saying, another one trade I saw from the Knicks that I actually looked at, awful trade. It was just terrible to look at. It was like, I forgot who they were. It was like two mid. I want to say one of them was Derrick Rose. I don't know. I like someone's like two mid players. It wasn't even Mitchell Robinson. And even we'll say it was Mitchell Robinson. But then it was five first round picks from the Knicks. 3 of them for the Knicks picks, and then one of them was like a swap. So it was like one or the other. And then another one was another, Knicks pick. And you look at that for Utah, that's 5 picks right there, 4 in a better positioning. Yeah, that's cool. If I'm New York, I guess they're desperate for a star. Think about it. But even that doesn't really do it for me, because if you get Donovan Mitchell, the picks are gonna be what, 20s? I don't know if I want that.
If Donovan Mitchell goes to the Knicks and like they have to give up some stuff, they'll be in the lottery next year.
You think the Knicks
I'm
will?
calling it right now. If the Knicks get Donovan Mitchell, they're probably still going to be in the lottery next year.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like,
What
yeah,
do they have? What do they
but
have?
yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the best trade that Utah could go for would be with the Knicks. The fit with Dallas is terrible. The trade option is terrible. Like, anything that they could get would be awful. I just don't understand it. But like Jalen Brunson, come on.
I appreciate you coming on. And who do you want to win the series, Warriors or Celtics?
Oh, I definitely want the Celtics to win the series.
Oh, I want the Warriors. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Drew.